Hello, hello. Hello, how are you? What is going on? Hello, hello. How was everyone's weekend? Make sure you share the live. Hello. I'm going to share the live myself. How is everyone? How was everyone's weekend? How was everyone's Monday? Just gonna wait for a few more people to join us. Give us some time. Until then, let me know how it's going for you. Make sure can you hear me? Can you hear the music? I need to get all the stuff out before we go live, eh? How was your weekend? How was your Monday? My weekend was actually busy but quiet. I had like 2 gigs on Saturday, kind of back to back. And then Sunday, just had some soccer. And then today, we just chill, writing some grants, getting ready for this podcast tonight. So that was pretty much my weekend and my Monday. Let me know how it went for you. I know it's the first day of the week. We're almost done. I know it just started, but the week is almost done. Hello, hello, good evening. Make sure you share the live. Open discussion. We also have someone on. So if you have something to say or you want something to discuss, you can always pop on and we can all talk, get some feedback. Hello, good evening, how are you? Just waiting for a few more people to pop on. Let me know if you can hear me. If you can hear the music. Share the live. I shared it with a few people already. Hello, hello. Good evening. Let me see who's in here. There's Jimmy, there's Mark, there's Michael, there's Ben, hello. What else is in here? There's Quint, hello, good night. Mixed Chick, hello. Just waiting for a few more people before we get started here. Hello, good evening. Let me know how your weekend went, how your Monday went. Share the live. We have some good topics on here. I don't want to give them all away, but we may be talking about panorama judging. We may be talking about criteria. If there's any other topics you guys want to touch on tonight, now is the time to do it. Hello, Selena. How are you? Let me know how your weekend went. Hello, Reese. Let me know how your weekend went, how your Monday went. Just waiting for a few more people to join us, and then we'll get started here. Make sure you share the live. Hello, Slim. Just waiting on a few more people to join us. Until then, let me know how your Monday went, how your weekend went. Ben just said he learned some Beatles songs. That's awesome. What songs did you learn? Christian Shout. Okay. Hello, good evening. Happy Monday. Let me know how your weekend went. Just gonna wait maybe like 2 more minutes or so, and then we'll get started. Make sure you share the live. Pan enthusiast, you should know who this is. Alright, I think it's time to get started. I think so. I think we have enough people in here. So hello, good night, good morning, good evening. Welcome to All Things Pan. Before we get started, we should first and foremost say happy birthday to the great, always amazing Dr. Len Bugsy Sharp. It is his birthday today. So I first and foremost want to get that out of the way because we have to give everyone their flowers while they are here. So happy birthday, Mr. Sharp. Hopefully you are celebrating with all of your family and friends tonight. For those that are new to this page, my name is Danielle George. I am your host for All Things Pan, and we are sponsored by Pantastix 868. They have everything from tenor sticks all the way to bass sticks. If you live in North America, message me and I will try my best to get them to you. If you live anywhere else in the world, message Pantastix 868. I pin them at the bottom of this post, and I usually pin them on all my other posts and stuff. So you can message them and they can get your sticks to you. I use them. I have many different colors. They are the best sticks to use. The rubber doesn't wear out. If it does, you can get a replacement, but these are tried and true. So, for those that are new, normally on this page I talk to pan players, arrangers, tuners, builders, pan enthusiasts about all things pan. But tonight I have the player, just everything on the show, Marc Brooks. Just waiting for him to accept. You might have to invite yourself to this live because sometimes Instagram is all finicky. So if it doesn't work, you can try and invite yourself. Just gonna wait on him to join us. Until then, everyone that is joining us right now, how was your Monday? How was your weekend? Let me know. Hopefully this works. Instagram is always weird. That's the one thing I'm not liking at this moment. Hello, Seth.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, I appear I'm sideways. Uh-oh.
Oh, okay. For some
All right.
reason, I can't see you. It's a weird thing, but as long as everyone else can see you, that is fine.
You can't see me. Uh-oh.
I can't see you, but that's okay.
All
That's
right.
okay.
Well,
As
I
long as everyone else
promise
can
you
see you,
I'm not that ugly. I promise.
we'll let the viewers tell me. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thanks. And yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. It's been an interesting week so far, and it just started.
You know, I can agree. I
Yeah.
can definitely agree. Yeah, it's
Okay.
kind of,
Cool. Cool.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
A lot happening for a Monday. And this is just
Yeah.
the first day of the
Right.
week. Yeah.
I don't
Hmm.
understand. I could like all this stuff could wait until later this week, but whatever.
I know, right?
Jimmy said he can see both of us, so that's perfect. That's
Okay.
all. That's all that matters. That's
All
all that
right.
matters. So, for those who do not know who Marc Brooks is, you want to introduce yourself to those people?
Well, yeah, I'll do my best. All
Like
right.
the condensed version?
Condensed
Yeah.
version. Okay, good. So yeah, well, my name is Marc Brooks. I reside here in Brooklyn, New York. I currently am an arranger. I am a drill master. I am also a drummer and a steel panist, and an educator. I've been educating formally for the past roughly 17 years
Okay.
at where my job, where I currently am. I work at for the Salvation Army. I help to run the community center location over there. And so we specialize in doing a lot of youth programming to the Brownsville community of Brooklyn, New York. And I was actually the one to start the Steel Pad program over there. So, yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
And
You know.
okay. So, how long have you been arranging for?
Whew. I think
Do you want to not want to answer that question?
the first year I got like my formal break to do arranging was in 2007, when
Okay.
I was playing with Sonata Steel Orchestra here in Brooklyn. I joined Sonatas back in 2001. I was off and on. I permanently joined them in 2003. And in 2007, I got an opportunity to do my first song, which is Band from Space.
Okay.
Funny enough, I was also playing with Steel Sensation at the time. And I was playing with Ian Japsey, and they did. We were actually able to be part of the process of like the formation of Band from Space because Amrit had did it a year before it actually came
Mhm.
out. So in 2006, we already knew about the song, and it kind of was like to the side, and we kind of like helped to encourage him to like bring it out there. And he said he was going to do it, And when he
Mhm.
did it in St. Lucia first, and then it came out in Trinidad, and the song was like a big song for the year. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that was like my first song I was able to arrange for them. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what got you into arranging?
It's funny enough. So the organization I started learning to play pan from was Sesame Fly Steel Orchestra, and it's
Okay.
a really like prominent cultural institution in Brooklyn itself, right? And
Hmm.
they had used to have a Saturday program. I went there, and we had an instructor, and his name was Kelvin Brown. So at some point, he used to give us like scales and stuff like practice, and learn about chords and stuff like that. And he did a song, and one of the songs I never forget this. He did a D7 chord, right? And at the time, I was only familiar with triads, like basic
Right.
triads, right?
Hmm.
So he had D and C at the same time playing. I was like, but how can this work? This doesn't make any sense. Like, what do you? He's like, yeah, it works. I know that did. I was like, but why? He's like, well, that's your job. That's you have to figure that out. I'm like, what the hell? So I had to like, I was wrecking my brain trying to figure out why that worked.
Yeah.
And then eventually I realized that that was just an extension. And from there, I like piqued my curiosity. So I went back and I told him why it worked. And he's like, oh, you did your homework. I said, well, yeah. I was like, you can't just leave it at that and just leave me hanging like that, you know? So
Yeah.
then afterwards, he came back and he said, well, if, well, he liked the fact that I actually did my homework. And then I told him, I said, give me about a year. I'm going to start doing music and experimenting with it. He's like, well, if you don't within a year, then you're sticking. So I challenge you to do so. I'm like, all right, cool. And so said, so done.
It all is history.
Let's history after that. Yeah, that piqued my curiosity so much. I
Yeah.
began to like delve into a lot more arrangements and really delve into like conceptually, like why would somebody play something here, or why would this particular strum be here in this section, or why would the bass move this way to get this kind of effect, or what
Right.
effect were they going for, and all. So I'm very big on like overall concepts and then building off of the concept. Yeah.
Okay. So earlier you mentioned to me personally that you've arranged for medium and large bands pretty much all over the world. Pretty
Well,
much.
yeah. So I did have some privileges to do some arranging in different areas.
Mhm.
This particular year, 2024, has been interesting because I did it in the drill master capacity, right?
Okay. Yes.
So I get to do some work with Dante Panton, the arranger.
Hmm.
And so I was able to work in a space with Dixieland Steel Orchestra this year, Starlift Steel Orchestra, and also in Brooklyn, got to work with Steel Sensation, my home band,
Yeah.
to help with Tristan and help get that moving. And then
Mhm.
also I was able to do some work in Miami as well, where Tristan was arranging for Mellow Groove at
Right.
Miami Panorama. Yeah, so this year was kind of a different year compared to most because I'm accustomed to being in the
The
Rangers
arranger.
capacity. So
Hmm.
yeah, so it's interesting to see how the contrast between the two positions, but how necessary they are.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, um, since you've done arranging and now you're now and a now renowned drill master, what would
Well, I'm
you,
getting there. I'm getting there.
your foot's in the door, you're
Mhm.
getting through. What would you prefer to do more? Or do you find them both equal?
You know, it's interesting, right? Because I
Hmm.
think personally, I always liked dealing with people in a large
Right.
capacity, right?
Right.
Um, for some reason or other, I've always gravitated to being able to be a person to motivate others to do something, right? Or to
Hmm.
get them interested in doing something. Um, Arranging, I think, would kind of take the precedent because of the fact that I do feel like there's a lot I have to give in regards to the musical aspect, right? In
Right.
regards to putting stuff out there and helping to accomplish the goal. But I think being a drill master, I've learned over especially doing it on different capacities now, how important that is to motivate the players to be able to want to do what they're doing. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
panorama is a lot of work. It's grueling. It's a lot of long practices and stuff like that. And there
Hmm.
has to be a lot of wherewithal to like look and assess a scene. Right. At some point, you have to be able to say, well, players are getting tired. I can't overdo it. Right.
Yeah.
Or we
Yeah.
say, we need to accomplish this goal. So you prep them and let them know, like on these particular days, they will be heavy.
Right.
Right. So bear with me, and then on these days we'll get a little bit of an ease up or a reprieve. And also in the practice itself is like, how do I break the monotony of running something over and over, or trying to, like be hard and fast on getting a specific thing correct,
Hmm.
and maintain their interest, especially like when you're dealing with spaces that have a lot of young people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The young people now, especially this generation of young people, um, they're accustomed to constant movement. I'll say that, all right? So
Yeah.
because they're accustomed to constant movement, it's like you have to make sure and maintain their interest at all points in time. So like sometimes I would try to incorporate things like little friendly competitions between sections. Those
Hmm.
section competitions get very heated, by the way. You know what I mean? Like which section is better, and or like sometimes you pair people up and say, all right, this is tonight's pair.
Yeah.
How would they do against this other pair? And it's all in fun. And at the end of the day, you encourage them not to boo anybody because at the end of the day, we're all on the same team. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
Right.
it also inspires like confidence now, because if they're willing to do it in that setting now, when they go on stage with everybody else behind me, an arsenal behind them, because they feel like they're part of an army, they're so
Yeah.
confident to perform, and it makes a difference.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it, because I don't think a lot of people think about making it a competition, especially for the younger people, because I find the young people are very competitive.
Correct. Yes, they are. Yes,
They are
they are.
very competitive. They need to prove that they are the best and no one can play with them.
Correct.
So it's a good idea.
Well, you got to be innovative. And you also be
You
quick on your
do.
feet, and
Yeah, you do. You
yeah.
do. For those that just joined, we have Marc Brooks, the world renowned arranger and now drill master.
Oh.
If you have any
Ah,
questions or you want to join the live, you're more than welcome to. Questions go in the question bubble below. Didn't work last week, but we're going to try this week and see if it works. Um, so I don't know if you tuned in for the last few weeks of the live, Mark, but there has been a question about judging,
mhm,
and we've like, I wouldn't say beat it to the ground, but it was left hanging for a bit.
okay.
So since you've been on the arranging side,
Mhm,
for those that can be there and watching it online, we don't know, like a big thing, especially for me because I can't make it to every panorama around the world.
right.
But for me watching, we don't know who the judges are. We don't know what the criteria they're looking for. We don't know the point system, if that makes sense. So for you as the arranger, do you guys get to see the judges' critiques and points at the end of the day, or is that just kind of
For the most part, right? In so anyway, let's say we're not counting Trinidad at the moment,
yeah?
right? But in other places, they give you the scores and they give you the remarks next to that, right?
Okay.
However, a lot of times they tend to give you the remarks on the nice side of it, right? The
Hmm.
spectrum. So, oh, this was great, this was great, this was great.
Yeah.
But it's like if this was so great, then out of 40 points, why did I get 32? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Those are questions that tend to be like up in the air.
Hmm.
In Trinidad, though, when you go through prelims and semis, you normally get your scores and your remarks. But for finals, that you just have the score and that's it. You know what I
Oh,
mean? So
okay.
at that point, it's like you should have already known to do your homework based off of what we've already told you. You know what I mean? Um,
Right.
so that kind of makes a difference.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah, it is a bit of an interesting thing, and
Yeah.
we have the 40-40-10-10 split for the judges' criteria that they normally pretty use like widely, right? And
Hmm.
with that, we have arrangement, we have performance, tonal quality, and then we have rhythm. And so I think sometimes there can be some like misinterpretation in terms of how they interpret specific things, especially I would say in terms of performance. We can talk about performance and then
Hmm.
arrangement,
Hmm.
right? So first we have to understand what is happening during panorama. When you look at panorama in general, you have one opportunity to make an impression on the judges for them to interpret what's going on, right?
Right.
And I think one of the things that a lot of people tend to, and I even made this mistake, I think in the beginning, when you're young, you want to like put out everything you can,
Yeah.
hit them with everything but the kitchen sink. You know what I mean? I'm going to
Right.
just give them notes and give them whatever I can.
Hmm.
But then when you go back and you listen, it's like, how clear was the message?
Yeah.
You know? And anytime I look at arranging, I remember it's two things that really changed my perspective. Number one was in 2014, I was arranging for a band called Harmony Steel Orchestra, and I did in the minor. Right,
Hmm.
a lot of people said they liked the arrangement. However, one of the arranger who was arranging for sonatas at the time, well, prior to that, I played under
Hmm.
for years, Johan Papa. Papa said he came by the yard. He said, "I had to come and take a listen. I want to see what you're doing."
Right.
And he said, I love the work that you're doing, right? But I want you to take a look. Take a look in the pan yard. He said, "Who's going to play this?" I said, "Yikes, you have a point, right?" He said, "This is good, but it's a lot,
Hmm.
and you don't have much to work with. So sometimes when you don't have much to work with, you have to adjust the suit to make sure it comes across properly and clear,
Right.
right?" A few years later, when I was in college, I had a creative writing professor, and with her, she was a rigid lady, but she was passionate about what she did, and I get it. But
Hmm.
one of the things I thought I was doing great in creative writing, our first assignment, she's like, "This is, I just wrote something down." I said, "There, here we go, take that." And when I came back, there was so much red on my paper. I was devastated. And
Right.
one of the things, I wasn't the only one that got all that red, so I didn't feel so bad. But one of the things she said is that if, let's say I'm not here,
Hmm.
right, or I'm somewhere else, I'm reading this, you're not here to interpret what you wrote. How does this come across?
Yeah.
It's like, how can I get the imagery of whatever it is that you're doing? How can I feel what you're doing or fully understand? How can I feel like I'm there without you having to be there to interpret your piece for you?
Persuading. Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that really changed my perspective because
Yeah.
when it comes to clarity, and if I was to apply that to music now, we're doing an arrangement. How clear now would it be as it comes across to the judges on that one night alone for them to listen,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so now, if I go back to what the criteria is, and we're talking about first off performance, a
Hmm.
lot of people think that performance is solely about smiling and jumping up and stuff like that or whatever. And it's not that at all. You know what I mean?
Right.
Really and truly, that's like the last thing. All the fireworks and the costumes and stuff, that's the last thing on the criteria, really and truly.
Right.
It may help to enhance a part, but that doesn't mean that it's what's going to make or break the arrangement or the
Hmm.
performance. Really and truly, what they're talking about is things like attack uniformity. How in sync is the
Hmm.
band, right? How are you now bringing across all these phrases and patterns as a group? How cohesive is the group? You know, if you listening to a band one off, you can tell whether or not a band has rehearsed together for a long period of time versus who just came together and made a side to go somewhere. You know what I mean? You can tell
Right.
the difference. And then when we talk about arrangement, how clear is the arrangement? How clear are the passages? Sometimes you can have a lot happening up on top and a lot happening on bottom, and at some point
Hmm.
you don't know who to listen to. You
Right.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so reinforcements become something that's key, so that arrangements can become as clear as possible. And just however well you're able to interpret the idea. Sometimes you may have a great idea, but it has
Hmm.
nothing to do with the song itself, right?
Yeah.
So then what relevance does it have to the arrangement? I myself have been, part of that where I would love a piece that, piece of music sounds so good,
Hmm.
but it's cool and all, but what does it mean for the song that you're arranging for?
Right.
Doesn't really mean much.
Right.
So then you have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how can I draw more relevance to the pieces as it goes along. And then you talk about the development of the piece, what is the transition from one piece to the next piece?
Hmm.
And I think sometimes this is where some of the misinterpretations come because obviously everybody wants to be a creative and bring out the ideas, but we got to realize that there's a time and a place and there's an arena for these different things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And in the element of panorama, one off, you have to have the element of excitement, yes, but also you can't overdo it to the point where people's ears are bleeding because they're trying to
Yeah.
listen to so much notes, but at the same time, too, just enough so it's not too easy, too simplistic,
Hmm.
and it's a lot to think about all at once. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I was gonna say there's some arrangements I've been listening to, and it's just like I forgot what song they were initially playing because
Right,
they've added so much, and at the end of the song, it's like, oh, right, yes, that's the song you're playing. So it's
right,
just like they're trying to fit in so much into that song when it's not needed.
right, right, right. And
Yeah.
also too, people underestimate the element of singability, right?
Hmm.
The bringing out melodies, right?
Yeah.
Or interpreting melodies. Sometimes you using a song, you're doing like pieces of, let's say, melodic development or even harmonic development, and you're using those melodies and making it interesting enough where people can know that that's the melody itself, but it just sounds different. It sounds more interesting.
Yeah.
It's captivating, but then also bringing it back to home base where people can sing along and really engage with the song itself,
Exactly.
as opposed to a run with like, 52 notes in it or something like that. I mean, it sounds complicated. It sounds interesting. It's like wow factor because people can play that, but again, relevance to the song, which
Exactly.
is why you can have a crowd backing a band 110% like this. Yeah, they have it there because it sounds hard and it sounds complicated. But then the
Mhm.
judges are like, well, no, you're down in the end there because we didn't understand what the relevance was.
Right. Right.
You know?
Um, I just want to go back to the panorama part of the judging.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Spencer that brought it up
Mm-hmm.
that each judge should have a specific criteria. So, like, one judge will be about how the band sounds, another judge would be just about the engine room, another
Mm-hmm.
judge would be, I don't know, we'll say for the tenor line or for the midsection and so on. Do you think that would make a difference when it comes to judging for panorama?
I think it could make a difference because it
Mhm.
could make it a little bit easier to focus on one specific thing versus the overall
Yeah.
thing. Um, I've been wrestling with the idea for a bit to see what can offer like a better justice to the bands themselves, right? And I say
Hmm.
that not necessarily catering to the judges, but catering to the bands because we have to really be fair. Bands put out so much to get to a certain point, especially when you're dealing with a piece of 100 or more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so and even let's not take away from things like single pan and stuff like that, where you
Oh,
have
yeah. No,
a
no, no.
band size of 40 and stuff, but it still takes incredible amount of work to get them from point A to point B,
Yeah.
right? But to do them more justice, I think that you want to have something that's a lot more fair and more concentrated, right?
Hmm.
In which case, if you have somebody focusing on rhythm, you have somebody focusing on tone, you have somebody focusing on arrangement, and then somebody focusing on general performance, it
Yeah.
gives the judges a lot more easier of a thing to focus on, right? So this is your
Yeah.
main thing. It does put a lot of pressure on one judge, though, right?
Right.
Which now you may have to go through the vetting process a lot more like stringent, right? Because now
Hmm.
you have to make sure that you have people who are qualified in these areas. So you'd want a tuner to be part of the tonal quality aspect. You
Yeah.
want an arranger to be part of the arrangement aspect. You want a drill master to be part of the general performance.
Yeah.
And then for rhythm, you want somebody who's versed in rhythm. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that might shuffle around who the judges are. So that also could be where the issue might lie too, because it's going to take us some reshuffling of who the judges would be. You know,
Right. Right.
so I'm still on the fence.
Okay.
I'm not. I've been leaning towards it, but I was trying to
Hmm.
figure out how it would make sense to implement. So
Right.
I'm still wrestling with the idea. Yeah.
Hmm. Another point that was made was you get a whole bunch of judges in a room, or not even in a room, on a sheet of paper, give it to all the bands, and be like, pick one judge that you do not want to be on the panel, or pick a judge that you want to be on the panel. And then
Right.
that way, each band was just like, this is, you guys all agreed on this, on these judges.
Right.
However they judge, you have to deal with it.
Right. I think so, with something like that, you would have to have. So, for example, if you have a governing body of like PAN, right?
Hmm.
So, for example, like a PAN Trimbago should have a governing body. On the governing body is full with people who are either the leaders of the steel pan community or fraternity at large, right?
Yeah.
So they are versed in these areas, so they should be able to choose a body of people who can do what they do. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
As best
Yeah.
as possible. Does it always happen that way? Sometimes you gotta. It begs the question. Whose friend is this? That kind of thing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Or
Yeah.
making sure that this happens. But I don't see anything wrong with putting them before a committee and letting them ask questions about their ideas or their standpoints of, what is reharmonization to you, or what is
Hmm.
melodic development to you, right?
Yeah.
Because now some people may have a different interpretation of what they feel that is. And, I've looked at things before where I've seen on a score sheet that they say, there was no harmonic or melodic development. And meanwhile, when you go back to the song, you can say, well,
It's right there.
actually, at minute so and so, this
Yeah.
here and here and this is where it's all spelled out for you. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So I there could be that vetting process so that more people are involved, so that nobody really slips through the cracks, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that might be the better method to go about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See, where were you like 2, 3 weeks ago?
Oh, to be honest, I was probably in a rehearsal. I was gigging at some point. This is now like a slower time. Like this past weekend was like the first weekend since probably like June where I was able to like enjoy my weekend. So,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, it's been
Okay.
pretty busy.
Okay. I'll let you have that.
Now, I see somebody mentioned about qualified sound
Yeah, I was
engineers
just
in PAN,
gonna bring that
right?
up. Yeah.
Now, I think that is needed for the crowd experience,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, technically, in an ideal setting, it's not supposed to impact judging,
Right.
right? Because
Yeah.
how it's supposed to be is that the judges are supposed to be right up to the stage where they are, but like in front of the where the sound comes back, right?
Right.
So it's not supposed to impact judging, right?
Mm-hmm.
Emphasis on not supposed to. How it plays out, it's kind of difficult to tell. I've never really been able to sit where the judges sit, so I can't really tell. Like on a main stage, I've done it for junior panorama, but not for the big panoramas and stuff like that.
Right.
However, for the crowd experience, it's very hard for them to interpret. Like for example, band number one always tends to get a raw deal, which is why nobody wants to go band number one,
Yeah.
because everybody's like, well, band number one is the experimental band. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I see this happen a lot outside of Trinidad, where if like especially here in Brooklyn, I could talk about my own hometown in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Band number one, like I was able to, we went with Steel Sensation this year, and at some point there was a short with a wire or something like that, so you heard it happen in the middle of the performance. So if you
Wow.
go back and listen on YouTube, you can hear it happening. If you go on
Yeah.
SoundCloud, you see where it was spliced and the recording starts jumping, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, again, these are the effects of playing with band number one on a stage that it's a shared stage, because that stage is not only meant for panorama, it's meant for everything happening during carnival time. So you have the March
Right.
Gras, you have Soca Monarch, you have all these things happening, Calypso Monarch, all that.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes a hard part. But in terms of qualified sound engineers dedicated to Pan, it is very important to have somebody guiding them to let them know this is what should be done. This is how you could properly mic them. This is how we get an even balanced sound. Somebody who can, analyze the scene and say, well, for a big band, we need to put the microphones here and here.
Yeah.
For a smaller band, we can do a more condensed setting or whatever, and just be really on top of it for every single band so that everybody gets their due.
Mm-hmm. I would even put that towards online presence because when you watch it online, the bands sound horrible. You try to understand, just
Right.
like I get it, the miking, and you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to envision what they would sound like if you were there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's painful to watch sometimes.
Agreed. Agreed. Like I've watched. I remember. I think in 2014, Renegades had did In the Minor, right? And
Hmm.
part of their performance, I remember hearing it live, and at some point, it's like they're going slow, and then all of a sudden it
Hmm.
speeds up, then it goes back slow again,
Yeah.
it speeds up again. It's like, whoa, but that was a killer arrangement. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
now, how can I properly enjoy that unless I look for somebody else who was either there live or something like that to really get through? You know. So
Hmm.
these are things that really need to like figure out how to perfect. I think the hard part too is that every band has different setups, right? So now you have to be able
Yeah.
to adjust to the setups. So maybe
Hmm.
if we implement something where bands would submit like a text sheet, basically, right? Because if you go live somewhere to a live performance, a band has to submit a text sheet of where things are going to go or what the setup is so
Hmm.
that they can plot the setup in advance, right? So
Yeah.
maybe if we go the route of doing a text sheet now in advance, like maybe like the week before, it gives people an opportunity to map out, all right, this band is 100 players. We're going to need X amount of mics here and there. They have X amount of basses,
Hmm.
whatever front line. This is in between. This is what their rhythm section is going to consist of.
Hmm.
All right, cool. And then this band is smaller, so let's condense it. We have less basses, but more. We need more of the middles because they have less middles, so it's not going to be able to be balanced properly. Along that lines, I think that could help at least, or give some preparation to.
Hmm. That would make sense because they do that for soca bands, they do that for calypsonians, so you would think they would do that for Pan.
See, now that delves into a whole different topic. That delves into a whole different topipic, right? In terms
Let's
of
talk about
respect for
it.
the instrument.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. This is what we're here for, man.
so, so there's a couple. All right. So I always try my best to think from a non-biased standpoint, right?
Okay.
I always try to remove myself from the equation and say, well, in a larger scheme, how does this work out,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Granted, people may not be as familiar with Pat, right? But
Mm-hmm.
as representatives and ambassadors of the instrument, it's our duty to be able to learn more about what we do so we can tell other people how to treat it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, I've had experiences before. All right, so for example, I work for the Salvation Army. I've been working with them for 17 years. I
Mm-hmm.
began there in 2007 by just becoming a pen instructor, and I did other things after that.
Mm-hmm.
However, in the process, we were able to form a small group, like the church group,
Okay.
and we did events. And at some of the events that they had they're big on brass. Salvation Army is very big on their brass bands, right? So they
Yeah.
have their
Yeah.
youth band and their adult bands that are really like killer brass bands.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like their pride, right? Steel
Right.
pan is definitely something that's new, is just newly introduced to them. So they don't know what to do with it, how to treat it, or whatever.
Right.
So at some point, we did a performance, and one of our first performances, I literally had to tell them how to mic the instruments, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We didn't really have an opportunity to do a tech sheet, but we got there early enough and we did a sound check. And I said, well, maybe you should move this mic from here. Let's try this. Or if you want to go this route, let's do more overhead miking to catch certain things. So this way, like rhythm section is not glaring beyond where the pans are because the
Yeah.
pans weren't as strong at the time, right?
Right.
So we don't want to directly mic rhythm. I know I can play drums pretty strong, so I don't have to worry about that. But more so catering to like frontline who wasn't as strong. The background is a little stronger and telling them what to do. And
Right.
so that gave them an idea of what they needed to do, and they were able to balance and see for themselves how it pans out. And it worked
Mm-hmm.
out pretty decent. They got a decent overall recording of the group, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just looking at that one experience, when you go other places, you should be able to tell people, whoever are introducing to sound, this is how we would like it to be, right?
Yeah.
But also too, we need enough people who know what to do with sound to tell them what's going on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also that also goes for a genuine respect of the instrument,
Mm-hmm.
right? So another part of that experience was that at some point they were curious about steel pan, and so because it's been advertised so commercially in regards to like just somebody playing some buck puck pan in either a subway or something like that, you got
Yeah.
people coming in trying to play the instrument, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
me being the semi-rebel that I was at the time, I was like, let me grab somebody's brass instrument and pick it up and see how they respond. That
Right.
was a big no-no. I cannot touch their brass instrument,
Mm-hmm.
right? So at the same respect, you cannot just randomly come and touch one of the steel pans. You have to be able to ask about it, inquire. We can
Yep.
introduce you, but don't just come up and touch. You know what I mean? I'm very big on
Exactly.
that.
Yep.
Very
Yep.
big on setting those boundaries.
Yep. Same here.
And so the same way, if you're going to put all this effort into, or a sound person is going to put all this effort into making sure a specific band that has, string or brass or whatever it is, to make sure
Mm-hmm.
they sound great, you can't settle for letting them give you whatever they want to give you because that's what they feel is necessary because it's a lesser. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you have to bring it to the prominence that it really is. But also too, it also depends on how you carry yourself, how you
Mm-hmm.
conduct yourself, how professional you move. If they are giving you leads into trying to figure out stuff, give them as much lead as possible to or coordinate with them
Yeah.
to let them know what you want, as opposed to on the back end not saying anything, and on the back end you say, well, I should have do this, or nah, I didn't want this, and
Mm-hmm.
you try to pretend to be badging at that point because it's too late, too little, too late.
Exactly. Exactly. Hopefully everyone heard that because
Uh,
I've seen some mics and it's just like that should not be there. That should be somewhere else.
right,
But I don't know what I'm talking about. So
right.
you know.
hmm
Um, for those that just joined, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions for the world-renowned Ranger, and now,
Ah,
see, you shouldn't have told me this.
oh Lord, have mercy. Okay, what did I do? What did I do?
Nothing. and world renowned, well, going to become world renowned drill master. Put put it in the question bubble below, and we'll
uh,
make sure he answers those questions because you can't go anywhere for the next. I don't know how long can I keep you for.
hey, I'm here. I'm
Okay,
here.
for as long as he would like to stay.
I'm here.
So you mentioned that you are teaching or you're an educator. Is that something you always wanted to do?
So how it began was that when I first started playing pan, it was one of
Mm-hmm.
those things where like I've told this to many people, like they didn't want to teach me at all,
Okay.
right? Like where I was in a Saturday program. It lasted just a few months, and then it because people had other obligations, they weren't able to keep it up. So I said, okay, I end up whatever I learned in that short space of time, I went and I began reading up on it and doing stuff. So whatever I learned, the basic information I did, I would now say, oh well, if anybody else wanted to learn, then hey, I will teach it, right? I
Right.
will give it back to the younger ones. So they said, well, if you're willing to, then by all means, go ahead. So I began at some point a year after taking over the Saturday program class, right? But at
Okay.
some point, I wanted to join the stage side. And when I went to join the stage side, they didn't know me. I didn't know them. They're like, who are you? I said, all right, well, I'll be right back. And when they came back, it was just in time for them to learn to do music or learn music from the arranger at the time. The
Mm-hmm.
arranger at the time was Peanuts, Jason Peanuts Isaac, right?
Okay.
And he too was like, well, he now learned. So I don't know what he's capable of. I'm going to go teach whoever I know. I said, all right, cool,
Right.
no problem. So I was playing tenor at the time, and I'll never forget. This is my first song I learned on pad was Toko Bat,
Oh wow.
right? And so
Okay.
I I'm revealing my age, right? Anyway, so
It's okay.
I I put the pen behind everybody else, and I would
Mm-hmm.
just like it look like I'm just fiddling, but as he give notes or whatever, I'll just kind of lean forward. I look at the notes that they're playing, then I'll go back and I'll learn, look some more. I'll go back and I'll learn some more. Then at the end of the night, they're doing the last couple of runs of the song, and when they're doing the last couple of runs, I just put my tenor up and I'll play like I was just with everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I was like, if they don't want to teach me, I'll fake the funk until I get it. It's not a problem. And so I did that for the next couple of songs that they learned. And when what they didn't know is that on every Saturday I was coming to practice my hand to make sure I had it. So when everybody
Mm-hmm.
came in, I wasn't shaky at all, right? So
Right.
they said, all right, cool. So at some point, they's like, wait, so what band you came from? I said, no, I didn't come from no band. It's like, what do you mean? I was like, this is my first time like really playing with a band, so I was
Mm-hmm.
interested, so I was learning. It's like, but who taught you how to play? I said, well, I watched y'all, and that was it. I mimic everything from how to hold the sticks, technique that they use to
Wow.
move from one place to another, all that stuff. And I was
Mm-hmm.
just very, very interested in learning something at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I was. And I always held that to me. So like anytime somebody asked about it, whatever I knew, even if it's just a little bit, I'm like, I'm going to teach them. And it happened so that I ended up doing a Saturday program for a few years by Sesame. And eventually they asked for an instructor by the Salvation Army. A friend of my sister, he's like, well, I'm now running a summer camp program. I want to add steel pan. Who can help me? And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, oh, my brother. He can do it. So I got there and then I started doing it there. And that's how I really got into education aspect because
Wow.
it was supposed to just be for summer camp. Then they kept me for after school. And then at that point, I was doing this summer camp after school and then the church group. And then at that point in time, I ended up going to trainings to, become a better educator and a better instructor. So I go to constant things in terms of like, behavior management, classroom management classes and those things, but figuring out
Mm-hmm.
how I could incorporate those elements of like even lesson planning and stuff like that to bring it to a steel pan setting. And that's what I tried to implement every time I go somewhere.
That's amazing. A question came up. Chris just asked, what took you so long to get on here?
All it takes is an invite from me. I got an invite, so I said, okay, that's all.
Yeah, that's my bad. I'm sorry, but we have you now,
uh,
so
yeah, well,
that's all
this is why we're here now.
that matters.
Yeah,
Everything happens for
correct,
a reason.
correct,
There,
correct.
there you go. There's another question here. What is your favorite section to arrange in Panorama? In a Panorama
uh,
song, sorry.
All right. You see, middles, I love middles, specifically like four pan quads and those kind of things. I love counter
Interesting.
melodies. I
Okay.
love, absolutely love counter melodies, right?
Okay.
Um, One of my favorite things to do in any band I go to,
Mm-hmm.
and this is all right. So, full disclosure,
Okay.
one of the first pan CDs I ever got was a CD called Pan Sweet Pan, right? And I think everybody would know this because it has the slow versions
Yep.
of Woman on the Bass
Yep.
and Pan in the Rage and Topo Back, all these things, right?
Yep.
And so I remember prior to that, I remember hearing the manager of Sesame Flyers always talking about Jit Samaru,
Mm-hmm.
always, and he's like
Yeah.
Jit is the man. He's very much into it, and he would tell me about the different things behind what used to happen in the arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
And so somehow or the other, I was able to listen to the CD, and I was like, I didn't, because at the time it was just literally it was kind of a bootleg CD, right? Let's be real, but
It's all good.
it literally in pen said Pan Sweet Pan, very thin on the CD. It had no listing of what band was what,
Mm-hmm.
but I was able to determine who Renegades was based off of what the descriptions that I got, right?
Right.
And I heard a lot of Jits inside music, and I'm like, to come up with this on top of a melody was like mind blowing to me. I'm like, how do you come up with this?
Mm-hmm.
And so now, fast forward to when I do music, or if I'm hearing somebody else do music, I would always, at some point, just for my own entertainment, let's just do front line and middles alone, nobody else, and see
Okay.
how it goes. And to me, it's like the best thing in the world because it's like it's so complementary to what's going on. And I
Yeah.
think if you take the notation aside, when I say well the melody part aside, right, and
Mm-hmm.
just go with the rhythmic aspects, right? I'm also
Mm-hmm.
big on drums, and so look how the rhythms complement each other, and to enhance it, it brings out a lot in the music if it's done properly, you know.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't know if he's still on here, but there's a pan player here in Alberta where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And when he arranges, he's big on middles. He's big on counter melodies. He's big on that. And it's just like, I hear you. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not me. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it, but I can't. That's not my thing.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
So
I'm more of a. It depends on the song. I'm more of a bass and a lead.
interesting. Why
Yeah.
bass? We skip the lead for now, but why bass?
I just love bass
Hmm.
lines. I just love a good bass line.
You know, funny enough, right?
Hmm.
My sister is the reason why I got into like delving into bass lines and how they operate,
Right.
right? Because she was always big on bass lines. And
Hmm.
every time a bass line would happen in a song, she would have like a movement for it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's interesting, right? Because when you look at the movements, is bass line is literally like your feet of a song, right? And
Hmm.
your feet can determine
Yeah.
how much swag you have in your walk versus how clumsy you
Hmm.
look
Yeah.
when you know what I mean, when you're walking. And I'm like, you gotta have swag. You gotta have swag.
You
So
do. Hmm.
bass lines are very important. So how you place your bass lines, you can't discredit that. You really can't. Melodies
Yeah.
obviously they speak for itself, and if your melodies are
Yeah.
not functioning the way it's functioning, then your song is shot. Really and truly, you can have a
Hmm.
great background, but if your melody is trash, then it is what it is. But
100%.
and which is why I don't speak too much on melodies because I feel like that speaks for itself. But I think the
Hmm.
overlooked things are the things that complement it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I hear you. I agree. I agree. Anyway, um, Toy says, out of all your arrangements, which one was your favorite?
Hmm. Now, is that me alone or me collaboratively?
How about we do
That's the
both?
question.
How about we do both?
Oh, playing hardball. Okay, got it. All right.
That's what I do here, man.
All right, got it. So I think I have two that I have three that are really significant for me, right?
Okay.
And I like them for different things, and I like all my arrangements for different things because of what I was trying to achieve at the time, right?
Hmm.
In terms of panorama itself, when I did harmony, I liked in the minor a lot, right?
Okay.
In the minor was was something that I wanted to see bring to life in different ways, and also kind of try to go as aggressive as possible,
Hmm.
knowing with what I had to work with, right? Because
Right.
I had a small band. Really and truly, the band performed that night with I think like seven tenors or something like that. It wasn't
Wow.
much. Um,
Okay.
my first arrangement with harmony though was Vibes, right? And that one I had slightly of a bigger band, and it was kind of significant. Obviously, the first one, but out of I think about 12 bands that year, we placed seventh, which was big for them because they're accustomed to coming. They were accustomed to placing like down in the bottom,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so they celebrated that I think it was seventh or sixth. I can't remember. Maybe sixth. I think I can't remember.
Hmm.
But they celebrated like they won. They
Right.
I was like,
Yeah.
dog, we lost, but they're like, we did something.
Yeah.
So watching them celebrate that was very, important for me. But
Hmm.
in terms of how the development was for in the minor, I like that. Now, when going towards when I was able to do ad lib for 2018 and 2019, 2018 was more of an experimental year to see what it is, how they would take to what I'm doing. And then
Right.
I remember in Trinidad when we were part of Three Amigos, we were doing So Long for Skiffle, right? And in
Right.
2019, when we were leaving, I remember before we got to the airport, I told Ken and Odie, I was like, just so y'all know, I'm doing I in Love, right? Y'all could do
Okay.
whatever y'all want for New York, but I'm doing I in Love. They said, all right, yeah, no problem. And then Odie's like, you're all right, I'm doing I in Love too. I said, okay, no problem.
Okay.
So I had my mindset on it because I felt like that could suit the band. I actually
Hmm.
wanted to, I was feeling something else, but in terms of what suited the band and the vibe of the band, I said I wanted to do that. And it worked out. And I think that one also was probably like one of my favorites in terms of how it developed as well. You know what I mean? And also the
Hmm.
clarity of the arrangement itself. Um, in terms of collaboratively, the most epic year we've had was with Hello. Hello in 2018,
Hmm.
with Skiffle. That was like it was stressful. It was very stressful that year,
Right.
but very rewarding, right?
Right.
I don't know if you're aware, but that year we actually did a different song, right? We did Full of Vibe first, and we
Okay.
literally did Full of Vibe from intro to ending.
Right.
And the week before prelims, we scrapped it and we did Hello. And it was
Right.
that was a yeah, that was a
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
time.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Why did you guys do that?
whoo, all right.
Long story. It's okay.
Well, no. We can delve into it. We can get into it,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So, at some point, we know there was a crossroads, right?
Right.
Because some of management insisted on doing what's this Patrice Roberts song? Um,
That year.
yeah, Street
Oh,
for Days.
that's a
There we
3 for
go.
days. Yeah.
Street
Yeah.
for Days.
Yeah.
Right. So some of the management wanted to do Sweet for Days, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
We began full of vibe, and at some point there was like a head-to-head, and management was very heavy and insistent on saying, "Well, let's go the route of doing Sweet for Days,"
Hmm.
right? And we're like, "Well, we kept saying, well, Sweet for Days can reach ahead because if you look at the development of the song, it doesn't really have like a defined chorus,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so that could itself be problematic. So you have to do a little bit more with the song
Hmm.
than you really plan to. You know what I mean?
Right.
You want something that speaks for itself, and you can just enhance and tweak to make it like build. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So um, at some point now, it was like 5 days left to prelims. I got a phone call, and when I got the phone call, now mind you, I'm in New York because at first I went down to start stuff, right?
Hmm.
So I went down to start a lot of stuff was full of vibe. We moved fast with the song. Odie came and took over. Then Kendall came down and met him. I came back up to New York because I had to come back to work, and I was coming back down, and they were down there in the pan yard working. And then I got a phone call because I was available after work, and they
Hmm.
said we have to talk. I said, "Oh Lord, here we go." Got the call, and as soon as we got the call, I was like, well, all right, I already know where we're going, so what are we doing? So we had this
Hmm.
stalemate because we're like, well, there's, you know, Sweet for Days, that's what they want to do, and we insisted that we want to stick with Full of Vibe.
Hmm.
So they said, well, let's try to find a happy medium. I said, well, I don't think Sweet for Days is a good idea.
Right.
So they said, well, all right, so if you have to make a recommendation, what do you recommend? So I remember somebody telling me about Hello. Then I went and I played it back in my head real quick while I was on the phone. I said, you know what? Hello can work, It
Hmm.
can work. So I said, well, let's do that. Let's go that route. Let's go with the hello.
Yeah.
I said, but here what? If we do hello, then that means by tomorrow I gotta be able to go down,
Mm.
right? And then we need people by the house tomorrow to learn music where they were staying and stuff like that, to learn music and stuff like that.
Right.
They said done. They said done. I was like, dang, what did I just get myself into? Okay. So I called Kendall and Odie. I said, yo, fellas, what's going on? So Kendall is no nonsense. Kendall's like, yo,
Yeah.
skip it. What's going on? We changing the song or what? Like, what's going on? Because I had an inclination that was going to happen, right? I said, yeah,
Mhm.
it seemed like that. Like, so what are we doing? I said, I feel like we're going to do hello. So at some point, we divvied up the song. And when we divvied up the song, we said, all right, we're going to divvy it up
Mhm.
for certain sections and we'll come back, right?
Yeah.
And so we were looking at just doing verse, chorus, and do a variation, do the two variations or whatever, and see where we reach, right?
Mhm.
So this was at like about probably like 9 o'clock at night, somewhere around there.
Okay.
We didn't go to sleep till about 6 the next morning. When I went to sleep, it was bright outside here in New York. And in wintertime, it doesn't get bright until it gets
Mhm.
rather late,
Mhm.
right? So when we look, we stitch it together, and we're like, oh, we might be onto something here. This actually don't sound bad. I
Right.
said, well, y'all will figure that out because I'm too tired to think about anything else right now. So while I'm at work now, they're like, yo, this thing is moving, and this is just with the small squad. They said,
Mhm.
yo, this song is moving. We said, all right, cool. And we start doing the song, we're doing the song, and they said, yo, it sounds good, but here's the problem. We need more music. All right, we're gonna work on something, but send what you could send or whatever the case will be like when? It's like now. I said, dang.
Yeah. Like
So I
yesterday.
had to take I had to take an early lunch break, see if I could score something out real quick. And at the
Mhm.
time I was like spitting out music. So I was trying to see what I could do real quick, set it
Mhm.
down. They tied it to what they did, and then it started moving again. And so I was like, okay, well, let's try it at the big practice and see how people do. So now the funniest thing at the big practice now, everybody they coasting or whatever, and they said, all right,
Yeah.
let's take it from the top. And when they said let's take it from the top, half of the band was playing full of vibe, half of the band was playing
No.
hello, and like people start dying laughing. It's like, nah, they did what? They changed the song. It was funny. It was so funny,
Oh
but
my goodness.
it was that whole season was like an adrenaline rush because of how
Yeah.
many things like built, and it came together in such a way where we were able to get Ben Jackson on board to help us drill after
Mhm.
prelims to get into semis and then finals, and Ben did a great job working with the band, and then um, by the time we got to finals. We said, well, we had to go down to Savannah and see what's going on with the band, get them in the order. By the
Yeah.
time we looked, the band was already in the order. We was like, well, look at this. This is nice. So we got kind of bored. We was like, there's not much to do. I ended up playing G
Right.
Seconds that year because I was like, well, there's nothing else to do. I might as well play something.
Mhm.
So I was playing G Seconds in front. And it was just so just like a really good vibe. Everything
Wow.
just felt good that year. Yeah. So that
Wow.
has to be one of my most memorable ones.
Okay. Okay. There's a few comments that happened.
Hmm.
Gabby said earlier, celebrating the small wins, 100%. Odie said, you told me that you'd cut my ass, which you did. Troy said, I remember that. I walked in the pan yard and they said that y'all changed the song. I thought it was a whole joke.
Yeah, sounds about
Like,
right.
sounds about right. Yeah. I think that's about
Mhm.
it. There was a question that came up saying, what do you think about the future? Oh, sorry. What do you think the future of pan looks like now? Right? I get those questions
Oh.
almost every time I go live, and it's a good question to ask because I like to see everyone's perspective on it.
All right, so I'll answer it like this,
Okay?
right?
So the political version we're getting.
Uh, bear with me, right?
Okay.
There's always two outcomes, right?
Okay.
Today, today is what it is. Yesterday is what it was. Tomorrow is what it can be, right? Cool.
Okay.
Now, when we get into the tomorrow aspect, what it can be is what we do with it,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it can either go left, or it can go right, or it can stay right in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
which is the status quo where it
Right.
is, right? And so we need more people and let's talk about Brooklyn first, right?
Yeah.
We need more people to be on board with the furthering of Pan in a 2024, 2025, 2026 mindset,
Yeah.
right? We need people to understand that 1962 no longer exists,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That's what it was. Every year we go forward with something is where it can be or where we're pushing it to, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we do with it is what happens. And the work that we put into it now is what will happen later on down the road.
Right.
And I think I need more people to be on board with this mindset because I feel like a lot of times where people would cry about what it was and how this can be and stuff like that. It's like, well, the potential was always there, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
more than enough people with the interest of the instrument. There's more than enough capable hands that can feed into a committee to add resource to a committee so that that one committee become a powerful entity so that
Mm-hmm.
at large now we can formulate something that's good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think we need more people on board that mindset as opposed to because I think right now we have, the bystander effect. Like, for example, they say, you always have something where something takes place and everybody fast to pull out their phone and say, well, hey, I caught that on camera, and then talk about the thing that happened as opposed to say, well, that should have never happened. If I didn't have the camera in my hand, then maybe I could have been able to free up both of my hands to, roll up my sleeves and now jump into whatever is going on. You know what I
Right.
mean? I think these are the things that we really need to consider in regards to Pat. And looking at some of the recent events with like even like posts going up and stuff like that, I don't think we need any more negativity. I think we need a
Mm-hmm.
lot more people to like do the behind the scenes work. And what people don't understand is that behind the scenes work is work, but it's often quiet work.
Yeah.
And when you're doing that work, you have to do that absent of the thought process of other people, absent of the critique of other people, absent of the wanting to please others,
Mm-hmm.
absent of yourself, even because now you're looking at a bigger picture here. I think when you're doing the work, you have to look at it as a matter of life or death, really and truly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Life or death of the instrument itself and of the community itself. And just looking at, and like one thing I don't talk about so much in public um, is like the work I've done with young people,
Right.
right? Over the years, I've worked with so many young people and so much like teens in
Mm-hmm.
particular, show them ways to channel like anger through Pan,
Yeah.
channel their emotionalness through Pan, gain confidence through Pan, do all these things,
Mm-hmm.
and looking at it, what it means to them, right? And to
Yeah.
this day, I'd be at work and people have come to me. It's like, hey, just so you know, I'm graduating with honors in college right now. And this is
Wow.
because of some of the things that you have mentioned to me while we were in your steel pan class,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't say this as a bragging point by no stretch, way, shape, or form, because really and truly, that is my job. That's why I was assigned there. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, other people have done that too in the pan community,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I've known people that have impacted me in a large
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah.
And impact others in a large way in the pan community. And it's like, well, if I didn't have this space, I know for sure I would have done craziness or I'd have been out there doing nonsense, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I look at it that way, and where I was able to reach people and stop people from doing nonsense in the streets
Mm-hmm.
because they had a place to go. Now,
Yeah.
imagine you take all of that away, then what? You know,
Exactly.
even this year, people can talk about whatever, say whatever they want to say about Panorama this year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in Brooklyn, but let's look at the positives, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had, I believe it was 8 or 9 bands that were able to perform,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Out of collectively, you're talking about over 1,000 people that are involved in pad playing, being around to support, or just be in a pan yard because they felt the need to just be there and be safe, right? Or
Yeah.
just to hang out. But just by hanging out in that association, they were safe from doing other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, the other aspect of my job, the community that I work in is not like the best community. It has its faults. We'll say that
Yeah.
it's not a terrible community, but you've learned to exist in the space. But they do have its shortcomings,
Yeah.
right? And the amount of times that people would want to see cameras because young kids from ages 14 to 16 have access to weapons and they're shooting and they're doing certain things.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, they underestimate the impact that these things have in the community itself. So
Yeah.
from that standpoint alone, I think that is a reason to fight and put in effort and put aside the petty squabbles to like make something happen. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
And this is what I think we need to have happen to push things forward and also do things in a way that's less
Yeah.
combative. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
The combativeness is just gonna like you curse me out, I retaliate, I curse you out. Then you say, well, nah, he can't top me. I'd have cursed him twice.
Hmm.
You say, well, nah, I'll do it thrice. You know what I mean? And that goes to the tit for tat versus where if we actually sit down, it's like we need to actually suck it up, have a
Hmm.
conversation, put ourselves aside, and figure out. Then you realize, wow, she actually had a really good idea. You know, I didn't
Hmm.
really hear that. And then you might say, well, he has a great idea. I didn't think about that. Maybe I could refine my idea and put it together. And if we do that now, it can go further. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, I
I
agree with you.
this is like bare bones how you begin to build something for the future.
Hmm.
And so that's why I say, if people aren't willing to do that, then it can go left as opposed to right. You
Exactly.
understand?
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%, I agree. A
Mm-hmm.
couple questions came up. One came from Venus.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to pick one place in the world, where do you dream of playing slash arranging slash drill master? I'm adding that in there.
Oh man. Oh man. I can't necessarily pick one place in the world,
Okay.
right? Because if I could do it everywhere, I'll do it everywhere. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't mind hopping and really and truly like my standpoint has always been like if I go somewhere, I like to get into a space and really learn a lot about it, right? I learn
Right.
the people, not just, the bare minimum about the people that's there, but like what are they like culturally? How do they express themselves, right? What
Hmm.
are these forms of expression to them? What makes them tick?
Yeah.
Food. I'm big on food. I like my belly. I really do.
We need to
I,
travel together because
all I'm saying
I
is
like food too.
I'm a message away. Just let me
Okay.
know, and I got you. That's
Okay.
that's, that's fine.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Cool.
Cool. Food is very important for me too, but I,
Hmm.
I I like to really get into space and like know people. So like me being able to like this year I was able to be in Trinidad and St. Vincent, Brooklyn, Miami, and all of them have a different culture.
Yeah.
Right, all places have a different culture, a different way that they operate, a different way they move, how they talk. Obviously, the accents will be different,
Hmm.
but the commonality is pan, but it's pan in such different ways. Yeah, it's panorama, but they're going for the same competition, but the methodology is different, right? How they
Hmm.
communicate with each other is different. How they dance is different. The kind of
Yeah.
music they listen to is different.
Yeah.
So I love all that. But all that aside, obviously, I would love nothing more than to be able to do a standalone piece somewhere in Trinidad. But then also I've been really interested to actually make it across to get to London. Like I've never been on that side of the globe before, and
Yeah.
so I would definitely love to see what that's about, and just get that
Hmm.
experience.
I was gonna say London for sure. Japan is a must.
Mm,
South Africa, I need to see
hmm
because they have a
mm,
few bands going on down there.
hmm
Um, there was another place that I came across. I think it was New Zealand and Australia. I
You
think.
know, funny enough, in 2018, I was doing Hulk with Adlib, right? And this
Hmm.
was just after Panorama time. And at the time, I was doing Panorama music for Adlib, but stateside music for New York Pan Stars,
Yeah.
right? And we had did a post Panorama event. This is like I think the Sunday after, like, yeah, this is Sunday after Panorama. And when we did the event, a lady came to me, and she's from New Zealand, and she's like, "Are you the arranger?" I said, "Yes." She's like, "That Hulk." Well, because I did Hulk for them at the
Yeah.
time. And so Pan started the verse and chorus, but I did the full Panorama arrangement, right?
Hmm.
And so when we did the verse and chorus, she's like, "I'll give you money right now if you give me that score." I said, "You serious?" The
They
lady
don't
pulled out
play.
her wallet and she gave me cash. And she gave me
Wow.
cash.
Wow.
I said, "Wow." And so she actually got the score and they went back and learned it in New Zealand and performed it for one of their events. My mind was blown when that happened, but it was so cool.
Hmm. I love when people appreciate music and pan in that way. I mean, she bribed you for the score,
Right,
but
right,
either way, she liked it so much that she was willing to pay for it out of pocket on the spot, and
correct.
you don't get that often. Tyrese has a question here. Do you
Hmm.
believe we lack organizational structure? Organized structure, sorry.
Now, here's my thing, right?
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily say that, that structure is the primary point of lacking, right?
Okay.
I would say, and this is like an abstract thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just follow me. I
I'm
would say
following.
the the cohesiveness is what's lacking, right? The
Yeah.
willingness to work together and the willingness to put ego aside and say, well, because they didn't go with my idea, I'm not gonna curse the idea that was gone with and say that was a stupid idea. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
And also the willingness to say I'm going to hear somebody else out for what they actually have to say, and sit down with that and say, well, you know what, maybe this could actually work, and
Yeah.
I can put aside the personal interest or the personal gain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, if you're part of any organization now, it can no longer be part of yourself. It has to be for the
That part.
greater good.
Yep.
And I've learned that, like in my role now where I am, over the years I was able to work myself up to administrative level,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when doing administrative stuff, a lot of times, as much as I don't want to get upset or I'd say I want to do this or I don't want to do this, I can't do that now, because when I take up that position, I have that responsibility and the duty to the people that it affects, right?
Mm-hmm.
So first and foremost, who am I trying to appease? It's the patrons, right?
Yeah.
So whoever's involved, like, so I'm now dealing with the people, right? That is the parents and the kids that we service, right?
Yeah.
Then we now take it up on the totem pole to the employees, right? Make sure all my staff is good and they have what they need to do what they have to do, but make sure that they're on top of their A game so that they are servicing the way they need to service,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And then the mission of the organization itself, right? If this is the mission, then we put the mission at the forefront, right?
Yeah.
And lastly, it's then myself, right?
Yeah.
Which, it can have its effects when you put yourself on the back burner sometimes, but at the end of the day, you have to think that way. Otherwise, you're going to make a bunch of like uh, decisions that will adversely affect the organization, and it's going to look bad as part of your
Yeah.
leadership, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that's lacking.
Yeah.
The part where people don't want to put their own personal interests aside and say, well, let's actually come together to do this for the greater good. Everybody comes with, well, I'm going to play smart, man. And I'm going to say, well, I want this or whatever, because I know if I say this, they're going to say this, and I'm going to try to outsmart them.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when you look at it, what we do? We outsmart ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. That's I have a lot of side conversations with a lot of pan players in the community, and
Hmm.
we all say the same thing. It's ego is the one thing we need to put aside,
Hmm.
because once that is gone, everything will start working.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
true.
And I see, I don't know if you follow, is it PanMax on
Hmm.
Facebook? Some of the stuff that's in
Yes.
there, I'm just like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you
It's
do know that if you put aside your ego, this will work. Like,
right. Right. And certain things don't have to be an issue, but we'll make it an
exactly.
issue because sometimes we just want our voices to be heard, or
Mm-hmm.
we want to line our pockets, or let's be real, like we want to line our pockets, or we want to, make sure that we look good in the
Yeah.
limelight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, sometimes you could look good by being in the back seat. You know what I mean? In the back burner.
Exactly.
Not you don't always have to have your voice heard,
Mm-hmm.
but your hand will be felt. You know?
Yep. Yeah. Speaking of PanMax, there was a question that came about, I think it was like a few weeks ago, about Panorama's killing Pan. I I had a few things to say about it. I had a few
Hmm.
thoughts about it. I I honestly think it's people in the community killing Pan.
it's funny enough, right? Just this past week, I had the same conversation, right? And
Right.
somebody asked me my thought on it, and I said I relate to this, right? And again,
Mm.
I can be really abstract with my thoughts, but just
Yeah.
follow me, right?
Yeah, following.
So they say the love for money is the root of all evil, right?
Right. Yeah.
That has nothing to do with money itself, right? In the
Mm.
sense that if it's money just existing as a being, right?
Mm.
Nothing, it's not evil at all.
Right.
Now, when you begin to covet this money and say, I gotta have this money or whatever,
Hmm.
then comes a phrase like I gotta cut ahead to get ahead, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's like that's where issues ensue because now you want this, you don't want nobody else to have what you have, and that becomes a problem,
Exactly.
right?
Hmm.
Um, Now with Panorama, I look at it as the same thing, right? In a sense, right?
Hmm.
And so when you talk about Panorama and you say, well, do I feel as though Panorama is killing Pan? No.
Hmm.
Panorama actually is draws a lot of attention to Pan because it's done on such a large scale, right?
Exactly. It's like our Olympics
However,
at this point.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. And so if you do Olympics, that doesn't mean people in their own countries don't do gymnastics. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? For example, cricket is in the Olympics all the time, right?
Yeah.
But now does that mean the West Indies is now not going to no longer do cricket until the fourth year of every cycle?
Exactly. Exactly.
Not at all,
Hmm.
because number one, they have to train. Number two, it's a seasonal thing. They're going to continue their season. Same thing with basketball. Same thing with all these
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Panorama itself is not killing pad, right?
Hmm.
It actually can be used as an enhancement if you do it properly, right?
Exactly.
However,
Yeah.
this goes back to the conversation of left or right with stuff, right?
Hmm.
What are you doing in the off season? And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of bands now treat it where I'm only interested in doing panorama. So when that time comes,
I'll be
now I'm
there.
going to reactivate the band, summon the troops, and
Yeah.
whatever, right? And what happens is you have, all right, let's talk about Trinidad first, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes you do have bands where it could potentially be like a hustle kind of vibe,
Right.
right? So they'll wait until the last minute to get things done. They get somebody to come and do stuff, or they'll try to pay players, right, to make sure they can get the hustle to get at least into finals, right? We
Hmm.
know how to win, but we're going to finals. But let's think about how much stronger your band would have been if year round you had been doing stuff. Now look at the bands who are leading Panorama right now. The
Hmm.
bands who are leading Panorama have a very, very well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
Strong stateside, consistently gigging, consistently building that chemistry of playing together because
Hmm.
Panorama is a lot about building that chemistry that, when bands come together or players come together. It's like you feel comfortable about playing next to the person that's beside you because
Right.
you know they are. If y'all want to dip, you don't have to think about it. Y'all would dip together. You know what I mean? Y'all
Exactly.
just get
Yeah.
that vibe.
Yeah.
Now, here in New York, very much of the same thing. I think there was a couple, COVID hit. There was a lot of downtime, but a lot of bands didn't use their time wisely in regards to trying to build to lead into coming back out, right?
Right.
Now, in the last hour, you were saying, now I want to come out and do something. And that becomes problematic because what happened all the other times, right? And now what
Hmm.
happens, all the woes and the struggles that they feel, they place on everybody else.
Right.
And now it's not necessarily fair because whose responsibility now is that,
Exactly. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Looking and I've been very blessed to be able to be around people who have been very forward thinking in the pan community, right? And
Hmm.
looking at their preparation process as Panama finished the day after. Hey, what do you think about this? How should we do this for next year? I'm thinking about putting this together, whatever. And these are the same people that other people come to ask for resources to put something together, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Which means that it is possible if you're willing to do the work, right? Right?
Yeah.
So Panorama is not killing Pat. I think a lack of, you know, structure caused by the superimposition of personal egos
Hmm.
is what's killing Pan in general.
Yeah.
We're not going to say, we're not going to attribute to Panorama. That's not fair.
Exactly.
If you have a governing body, right? And I'll talk about New York,
Yeah.
right? And Lord, I might get my head bust. Whatever, it is what it is.
Okay.
But if we talk about New York, right?
Yeah.
And we're looking at a plan for or paving the way for the future. I
Mhm.
said this before, and I think it was like a comment that was overlooked, right? But
Mhm.
I like again, I kind of think very abstract from the average, right? Because
Yeah.
I always been in positions where things have to build from the bottom up, so I know what it takes to get there, right? And I
Right.
would say this: let's now, if you're a governing body, as the governing body who is now unbiased, we're not looking at just ourselves, we're removing ourselves from the equation,
Mhm.
looking at the community as a large.
Yeah.
Let's now first create a 3 year plan. What
Yeah.
do we want to see in these 3 years, or maybe even 5 years, right?
Mhm.
It is a slow, methodical approach, but by the time you get to that 50 year, everything is as solid as possible and you don't have to revisit,
Yeah.
right? But let's do this approach. First, we need to tackle issues of organization and structural and business or whatever. Fine, but before we get there, right? Let's first give them a reason to do so, right? Because people need a cause to fight for,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So in that cause, let's do more events. Back in the day when I first learned about Pan and was involved, every time you look, there was an event going on, right? There'll
Mhm.
be Panorama in September or late August, right? Then
Yeah.
straight after that, you have a winter concert. After the winter concert was a gospel concert. After the gospel concert, it was a spring concert. After the spring concert was a jamboree to lead it to Panorama, and up to Panorama is 10,000 band launches, right?
Right.
And because bands were functioning, they weren't hustling to put together music like that, right? And it became
Right.
a pride thing because it was like all these events to play for, let's do this or whatever, and let's make sure things are going. But because they also had a band function to prepare for these events, on the side, they're able to take on gigs. So if
Yeah.
somebody called for a gig, these bands can now do these gigs. And so that makes the state sides a lot stronger,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot more stronger state sides than just something that's randomly put together for the purpose of summertime, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can tell the difference when people are just put together versus when they've been practicing together.
Practicing. Yeah.
So now,
100%.
after you do that now, and you say, well, all right, now we're doing this. If you want to talk about an organizational thing, now here's where you begin to be strategic. Okay, here's what we can do.
Mhm.
While you are practicing for these events, all right, this is the governing body, this is what our calendar is for the year,
Yeah.
right? As you are practicing for these things, I want you guys for this year, keep record of all the players you have coming in and out of your pantheon. Take attendance.
Yeah.
All right. What is the purpose of taking attendance? Now, when you go to seek funding, right, the
Mhm.
governing body already has its 501c3 status, so you can request funding for different things,
Yeah.
right? You can do it now on behalf of the bands, right, if you really wanted to,
Right.
right? So if somebody is willing to give it money, it can filter into the rest of the bands, right,
Mhm.
for whatever particular cause you write up for, right?
Right.
But now this is how it can help feed your band and say, well, you know what? Let's do this. We were planning to do this. We're going to apply for this grant to do this particular thing. Each band who receives funds will need to participate in this.
Yeah.
But now we can, move it. And then you're now, okay, well, if a band wants to participate and want to take this money and get to that point, their organizational structure has to be in point, right?
Mhm.
And show the transparency of this is what we're doing with our funds and whatever the case may be. If not, then they can have a lot to pay for, right?
Right.
This isn't an ideal world kind of vibe, but it's a measured approach to get from point A to point B. And if you only keep talking about, well, every band has to learn the business structure or business model, then it really goes back to every man for themselves. And it becomes overwhelming because everybody is trying to tackle the same
Same
giant
thing.
on their own,
Yeah.
right? Right?
Yeah.
But that is not going to work. It's not going to work. You need to come together at some point to be able to tackle this thing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so that's my little abstract way of thinking.
I love it. Imperfect Masterpiece had a comment. Equinox and
Hmm.
Orange Hub currently teaching Pan, and like other organizations to working hard, working hard to work together and make an impact.
Where are those? I wonder where they're located.
I don't know if you guys are if Imperfect, if you're still on, can you let us know, please? Um, I have a question for you
Hmm.
because you've mentioned a lot about stage side and we'll say panorama band. So let's just say I don't know, we'll say a band in Toronto
Mm.
wants to, they have a band, but they find that their attendance for a big band is, oh, they said Rockland County, New York,
Mm.
and Orange, New Jersey.
I've been seeing some things actually out there recently
Okay,
in posts. Okay, okay,
okay,
that's what's
cool.
up.
Yeah.
That's actually
Um,
pretty big in Jersey. That's good.
really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In regards to like marketing and stuff, the market and stuff like that. So if they're doing things out in Jersey, that's great. They're covering some pretty good ground,
That's good.
and actually a lot of untouched ground, which is great.
Huh.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
I need to start following those people.
Some
Can you message
uncharted
me?
territory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Message me, please. And let me like message their Instagram so I can follow. Um, so I know a lot of bands in well North America are trying to do the whole performance band and we'll say panorama band or like a I don't know like a part-time band kind of thing.
Hmm.
How would you I guess separate a performance band versus an everything band? I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Like a panorama band?
I mean, it does make sense. So
Yeah.
like panorama, you'll always see like because in large, right?
Hmm.
Because of the nature of Pan itself,
Yeah.
you have those who are all right. Let's call a spade a
Yeah.
spade. Panorama is a lot. They're based off of hobbyists, right?
Right.
So some people would only come out because their summers are free. I can
Hmm.
play Pan,
Right.
right? And I like Pan so, but that's how I'm gonna spend my summer.
Right.
After that, I'm gonna go back in my hole and hide, or whatever the case may be. But in regards to a stateside now, a stateside is a lot more work, a lot more maintenance, right?
Hmm.
But in order for that to be effective, you have to create something interesting enough for people to want to hold on to. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Yeah.
I think that's really where the hard part is. So sometimes people feel like if they're going to practice too much, but there's nothing to play for, then it's like,
Hmm.
well, what is my purpose of doing so? And then you also have with this generation now, they're very much on the, okay, if I'm not making money for this, then why am I here kind of thing too, right?
Right.
So you have to have a fair enough balance to say, well, there's going to be some buy-in, but every so often, even if it's a little something, you can give them something per
Hmm.
gig or whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of expenses that come with running a band. You need like you got to have a home base, right? So sometimes you
Hmm.
got to pay for rent. You got to do all these things.
Yeah.
Sometimes, getting trucks for a band is expensive or whatever,
Hmm.
or however transportation is divvied. But that is the expenses that have to go on, before you cut a gig. But looking for things for them to play at and to perform or at least highlight or at bare minimum, if you're not going to be able to pay them as much, a method of documentation for the things that they do, right?
Hmm.
Do a recording, put it out there on YouTube or on the socials, you know what I mean, social
Yeah.
media. Um, do something that's tangible for them so that people can see them playing and performing so they can feel good about what they do. And if they want to do it themselves, like some bands have people who are happy with just being a player. Some bands have people that want to do more. At least they have
Right.
something that they can show, like, hey, this is what I've been doing. This is what I've been working on.
Hmm.
I'm playing here. Check me out. Check out my band. Check out my group, and that will help
Right.
instill pride in the group itself. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then also too, I realize if you're dealing with young people, giving them an opportunity to do something in the band is very big, right?
Hmm.
That's really a big way to get the interest, to get them to want to fight for a cause. And if we're
Right.
going back to even the whole panorama talk or whatever, this is just an observation. Anybody can tell me I'm wrong, but this is my observation.
Hmm.
A lot of bands are filled with people who have been there, done that over the years, and at
Right.
this age now, they're tired, right?
Right.
So, because they're tired, they don't have the energy to get up every week and go to rehearsals and, pick up that one, drop off that
Hmm.
one, and do all the things that come with it. So,
Right.
which is why when panorama time comes, they're like, all right, yeah, let's just do the panorama thing. They can go back and rest for a couple months and then come back and do it again,
Hmm.
right? Whereas if you have a proper management team that's, either youthful or who are up to the challenge of dealing with this on a day to day, because it really is day to day when you're
Yeah.
dealing with this amount of players, right?
Yeah.
Then you could say, well, yeah, I want to, commit to this. You know what I mean? Like it
Hmm.
just it just just gives that a different perspective. So you have to begin to incorporate young people into what you're doing, because sometimes you may think, oh, well, because I think a lot of the elders think that, well, I don't want to do this because then I have to do this by myself and do that by
Yeah.
myself. But the reason why you have to do it by yourself is because you don't want to teach anybody else.
Right.
So, if, for example, you're talking about having to drop people off or whatever, but yet you don't
Yeah.
want nobody else to drive, well, they'll forever be stuck with the responsibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to deal with the social media thing because I don't know how to operate that. Well, you have somebody who's capable.
Right.
Young people on social media all the time. They know how to operate
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Give them an opportunity and just guide them. You could set it
Mm-hmm.
and forget it once you train them properly,
Yeah.
And these are the things that need to happen. Now, if we're talking about the left or the right, if we're in terms of direction of pad, that's a good way to do it, right? Form that model. You incorporate young people, give them posts, give them position and responsibility, let them know that, what it means to have the weight of responsibility be put on them, but also let them know what it means to reap the reward and the benefit of knowing that I've done this. This was
Right.
successful. I did a great job. And that would outweigh all the hardships that they endured in the season or whatever the process was to get to that point,
Mm-hmm. Good way. For those that are thinking of doing that, there you go. there's the platform to do it. Again, for those that just joined, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the question bubble on the right-hand side. Let's talk about New York.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, some Imperfect just said, just had this conversation this morning about it.
Uh-huh.
So,
It's a big topic, but
it is.
it's everything is doable. We just have to shift the mindset from it can't happen to how can we make this happen.
Mm-hmm. But I know some bands, some conversations I've had with some bands is that they give that person that responsibility and nothing happens.
Is that the only person in the band?
Well, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
But
that's an excuse.
if
That's what I
that
was able to
person's
say.
saying I want to take lead, I don't know, we'll say on social media,
Mm-hmm.
and you tell them, okay, this is your job, this is what I want you to post, how often I want you to post, but yet nothing's been posted for like 3 months, and
Right.
no
And I
one
think,
wants to take that responsibility.
like any organization, like any business model or whatever, there has to be a level of accountability,
Yeah,
right? You
100%.
give this
Yeah,
you give this person an opportunity, right? And also too, don't think you have to limit it to just one individual. Sometimes you could
yeah,
test the waters,
yeah.
right? You give it to three people, see who's the more serious out of the three.
Hmm.
If this one person is more serious, you have gotten the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are more people that are interested, then why not? Or you wait till you find the right person to be interested,
Hmm.
and you let them do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have to stick with that one person alone, because if they're not doing a great job, they're doing an injustice to the organization,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But to me, to say, "Oh well, I give it to them and then they didn't handle it well," that's an excuse, because there's more people
Mhm.
that you can give it to, And if you
Right.
don't have more people to choose from, then what is wrong with your model that you're not inviting more people to be in your space?
Mm. Very true. And Perfect just said, invite collaborator tool is a beautiful thing. It is. I love the collaborator tool. It's the
Mm-hmm.
best thing Instagram has ever did. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner, but yeah, love it.
I mean, it works. Like just today, I got tagged in a post, and I was, became the collaborator on the post.
Hmm.
And even without having to do anything, it's generating
Exactly.
traction, because now you have two audiences that you can now pull together to get likes and generate attraction to the post.
Yeah.
There's so many ways around it. And again,
Hmm.
I think a lot of people, because they want this specific thing, or they can only see this thing,
Yeah.
they challenge anything that makes them look beyond what they're capable of seeing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because that comes with the element of trust.
Yeah.
And there's a lack of trust, a heavy
Yeah.
lack of trust, because
There is.
it's like battered people in a relationship. I don't want to trust this person anymore. I've been abused too many times.
Yeah.
I don't want Harper to beat me. That kind
Yeah.
of vibe. You know.
Yeah. Sometimes, well, yeah. Yeah. So Logo just said the legendary Marc Brooks. I have
Mm.
been saying that, and he keeps laughing at me.
I don't know about legendary, but Flogo is my boy. Flogo is my boy for sure.
So let's just get back to New York. Um, Panorama came and went. Things
Hmm.
happened during that time.
Hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on what happened during that panorama? And are you looking forward to any changes for upcoming panorama, or what would you like to see change? I have so many questions concerned about this.
So
So
here's what I'm
we
gonna
can
do.
start
All right.
from wherever.
Here's what I'm gonna do.
Mm,
I'm gonna talk about the good things that I saw from this
yes,
panorama, right? And
yes.
if anybody challenges it, right, before they do that, I want them to think about the viewpoint and how they can change their viewpoint to a more positive viewpoint,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
That's how we can get better solutions to whatever is going on.
Yes.
Okay, so let's
Please do,
talk
because
about this.
from us watching it from the outside, we only see
Hmm.
the bad stuff, so we don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Right. So
So,
number one, what a lot of people don't know is that during COVID time, right,
mhm,
every hole and that could be filled has been brought up filled with buildings or structures, right? And really and
right.
truly, that has been going with like a lot of the people who are into the whole home investing thing in terms of like the buyer's market for homes and housing or whatever.
Hmm.
All right, cool. Now, ironically enough, some of these buildings are uninhabited, really and truly,
Right.
but they just decided that I can put this up, increase the property value for my next place that's up there, and so I'm going to do that anyway. And that's how they operate, right? It's really,
Hmm.
everything is about money these days. Okay, cool. So there's been a lack of places to practice.
Right.
So bands have been shifted from one region, one general region, to another
Uh-huh.
general region in Brooklyn.
Right.
Okay, cool. So now, with that being said, um, they still manage to find ways and areas to actually practice,
Hmm.
right? Some people were able to retain the yards that they had prior to COVID. Some people got yards after COVID and maintained it since then.
Hmm.
But they were managed to figure out a ways to pull it off, right?
Right.
Which takes a lot of skill, ingenuity, a lot of hustle, and being the pavement and talking to people. And they managed to get it done. Granted, people, obviously the competitive aspects, so who's going to talk smack about whatever band or whatever, it's bound to happen because it's all competition at the end of the day because
Yeah.
everybody wants their entity to win. We know that. But as we're going down, this is actually one of our most competitive years that we had in
Hmm.
a while in regards to
Yeah.
Panorama,
Yeah.
right? Looking at who competed, how many bands competed. Last year was the first year after COVID that we had an actual Panorama. The year
Hmm.
before we had just a showcase, right? You look at the
Right.
size of the bands in the showcase; they were small. Last year's they didn't have they had I think a bunch of about 6 or 7 bands that came out. This year had 9,
Hmm.
right? It's it shows growth. It shows growth,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now, if we go to the panorama competition itself, last year we had a big problem where the stage was concerned, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because specific people wanted the stage a specific way, and that
Hmm.
impacted the bands. And so bands had to literally play Tetris on stage to see how they could make it work to get the bands to fit on stage,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, Granted, this year was a slightly smaller stage. It was an open concept.
Interesting.
Yeah. In
Okay.
terms of square
Yeah.
footage, it was a smaller stage, but it was an open concept, right? So
Oh,
you could take up whatever space you need on the stage, right?
yeah.
But then also the ramp wasn't as steep to go up, right? Because it was kind of a shorter stage. So,
Okay.
if anybody has ever tried to push a rhythm rack up a stage, that takes about 20 people. Like, all right, one, two,
Yeah.
three, and then push.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
that's a thing. But this year, it wasn't as high, so it didn't require as much to push it up there, right?
Right. Right.
Um, could the stage have been bigger? Okay, cool. The organization that Wadika, who was putting on, said that they had challenges in regards to the stage or whatever. Okay, fine,
Okay.
but they still made it happen. Um, I would say, compared to last year, this year's
Hmm.
panorama had a lot more in attendance in regards to the people that were there.
Okay.
Um, so I think that's a positive.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I think any other challenges that existed were like individual band based. You know what I mean?
Mm. Okay.
In regards to things that they personally face in terms of either gathering resources, gathering material, or
Yeah.
whatever to be able to make it to that point. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, Ultimately, I mean, I think that there's a consensus where we do believe that prize money could be a little bit more for the bands
I think
because
that's
for
everywhere.
example, when I started playing pad, the
Yeah.
minimum wage was not that much,
Right.
right? Versus now, where the minimum wage is at now 16 in New York, right? 16 an hour in New York.
Yeah.
That is like almost a $10 difference in regards to what the minimum wage is gone. But Panorama prize money has stayed the same from then to now,
Right.
right? Resources have gone up.
Hmm.
Human capital has gone up. Everything has gone up. Cost of living adjustments have gone up,
Yeah.
but that has stayed the same. And that's something that definitely can be looked at because I think the bands do deserve a little bit more for being able to come
Hmm.
out. You know what I mean? But this is also why it's important for bands to have in like a good structure in place. Because if you have a good structure in place now, you wouldn't have necessarily to depend on that money to
Yeah.
make your band survive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you do your work, it's like harvest, right? You do your work
Hmm.
in the off season, right? The reason why you're doing your work is because when it's time to harvest now, you can harvest as plentiful as possible. But if you don't put in that work during harvest time, don't expect to reap much fruits on the back end. You
Yeah.
know, I think that's the part that sometimes we tend to neglect.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Interesting. Toya said Flogo's interviews next.
I agreed.
Here's the thing with Flogo,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna call him out. I've had him on the show before.
Mm-hmm.
He is a very popular and busy man.
Well, correct.
I I think his status is way above me. I might have to pay him to be on this show. So Flogo, have your people call me, and we will get that.
Oh,
We'll get that done because I see you doing big big events. I see you collaborating with big people now.
mm-hmm.
You get your people to message me, and I will see if I can afford you to come. But Flogo, you know me. You reach out, you know I got you. Oh man. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss on this amazing platform? Because this the floor is yours, man. Got
um,
any issues or any positives you want to bring out? Now is the
oh
time.
man, I
Any dreams?
I don't know.
We'll try to make that happen for you.
Any
Any
dreams?
dreams?
I think I have a lot of things that I want to do, to be very honest, right? A
Oh,
lot of projects. I don't necessarily want to put them out at the moment because I
that's
do want
okay.
to set some motion to them.
Yeah.
But I do have a few things that I want to do project wise, right? And so
Okay.
what I've been trying to do is just trying to figure out, the step by step process to get there. But it'll get there eventually. So when I do, trust me, I got you. I got you. I'll let
Let
you
me
know what
know.
they
I'll
are.
post it like crazy.
All
We'll have
right.
a we'll have like a if it's an album, we'll have a listening party.
Oh,
We can do that.
that could work.
We can do
That
that.
could work. That could work.
Okay.
And aside from that, I don't think I have too much issues to really discuss. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Out of certain things can be kind of controversial too, so I don't want to get shot while I'm here. You know what I mean? But
You,
ultimately, I think.
the All Things Pan crew will come in if we need to.
Oh, oh, let me see the fist. What they look like? Okay, I would just put that. Okay, got it. That's good. I feel safer now. I feel safer now. Um, yeah, I don't have too much other topics to be very honest with you. I think I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I talk too much, or like,
No,
because
you're fine.
if anybody knows me, if I'm in a space, I'm very quiet. To be very honest with you, right? I don't say much at all unless I'm fully like I've known somebody for years or whatever. I'm actually very quiet, very observant when I go into a space or whatever. But when we get to talking about like now with pan stuff, pan related things, that's when I start to go off. I have a lot of opinions, a lot of things to say, share, and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
that's just me. So like. That's why, like I was telling you, like when we were messaging back and forth, whatever
Yeah.
questions you have, I'm open. I'm just, just hit me with them. I got you.
Okay. I feel like us pan players are very similar. We're very quiet, but when
Hmm.
it comes to pan, we can talk someone's ear off.
Correct.
I
Correct.
don't know why. I don't know what that is, why that is. But I
It's
mean, I'm cool with it.
for the love of pan, is what it
It
is.
is. There's a couple questions that came up. Toy said,
Mhm.
"Who is your role model arranger?"
Whew.
You have a few, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So ultimately, right? And
Hmm.
this is who has influenced a lot of what I do and why I began. Jit Samaru has been that guy for me, right?
You can tell in your
Um,
arrangements. Just saying.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He has been that guy. Just because, like, I'm a fan of organized, what we call organized chaos, right?
Hmm.
And like there's a poeticness about organized chaos that makes things come together at the end of the day.
Yeah.
um and I'm like, it's for I'm I had the privilege of meeting him at some point, and
Oh
in
wow.
2001 he actually came to arrange for Sesame Flyers, right? This is my
Hmm.
third year playing pan. I'm excited as hell because he's coming up, and when he came up, I look at him and I'm like, he's like half. At the time I was always tall, right? So I was
Hmm.
young, I was very tall still, but he was like a little bit under my shoulder, and he's a short
Oh
guy.
wow.
But
Okay.
to think that that amount of music and that kind of energy and power came from him had me
Hmm.
always intrigued, right? And
Right.
also when he spoke, like everything he said, nothing he said was ever out of place, right? Even the way he dressed, everything was so neat, well put
Yeah.
together. And when he
Yeah.
said something, everybody listened.
Hmm.
Everybody heard what he said. Everybody took it in,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, this is like it's he had a presence, you know what I mean? And it was interesting. And then listening to a lot of his arrangements, I've dissected his arrangements frontward or backward, all of the above,
Hmm.
and I just resonated with me a lot, which doesn't take away from a lot of the other arrangers from back in the day, right?
Yeah.
So I listen to a lot of people for different things. I always thought that in terms of like polyphony and stuff like that, Jit and even Smooth had always had that energy and that drive right behind their
Hmm.
arrangements. You can tell Smooth had a lot of classical influence in the way how he did
Yeah.
things, and so I always challenge like people who are coming to music for the first time, coming to Pan for the first time, listen to it from a different lens. Don't listen to it like how everything else mainstream is going on, right?
Hmm.
Listen to it for what it is. He's a classically influenced arranger, and but look at how he interprets the song versus how everybody else does.
Yeah.
Look at the clarity he offers. Look at his orchestration, how he spreads what he does. It means something. Everything means something, and there's a cleanliness to it that is like unmatched, I think, by
Yeah.
a lot of bands. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
I think Pelham, I always liked the fact that Pelham had been willing to go to a lot of places that people weren't willing to go. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? In terms of like chord structure, melodically, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You could tell where he experimented, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to try something new. I want
I'm
to
just
do
gonna put it
this."
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it worked for him. You know what I mean? Again, but his orchestration technique is very different. And he had the ability to make his harmony sound very rich, but more on the
Hmm.
jazzy end. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Um, Bradley and Xander have a sweet simplicity about them,
It is so
and
simple. It's crazy,
right,
and it
it's
still has
sweet.
impact.
This is the thing; it's impactful.
Yeah.
I had up here. If anybody who's been playing pad up here, we know this guy. We used to call his name was Kurt.
Hmm.
He passed a few years ago,
Okay.
but Kurt used to play do music for Harmony. But while I was there, he used to do stateside music with them. He did music
Hmm.
for Rados for their stateside too. Some of the songs they still play to this day. And I remember he was describing Bradley's music, right? Didn't actually this is like the year before he passed away. He's like, you
Right.
know, Bradley is a man. He's like he described him as like a leopard or a cheetah, like about to pounce on the prey,
Yeah.
right? Very quiet, until it's time to strike, and then boom, when he strikes, that's it. It's a deadly blow,
Yeah.
but it's very targeted, very intentional.
Hmm.
but when it's time, he strikes when the time is right. And if you listen to the music, like it builds that way. You can see those
Yeah.
elements, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, there's a few other in that era that I really hold in high regard. Um, and then even now you can't, you know, take away from a lot of the younger rangers who are like consistently producing, and there are rangers that you have to respect for the amount of people that they've produced. Into like,
Yeah.
Arden has produced some of the best players, like hands down in New York, right through
Hmm.
Castle, and also just the work that he continuously does in Trinidad. He's has that energy about him, and he also has a presence about him. Nobody could obviously Duvon. Nobody could ever deny Duvon is who he is, right? Being
Yeah.
able to do what he does throughout all the categories, right? Every single
Hmm.
category he's found victory in, and he's nonstop producing. And it's like, well, where the heck did you get all this music from? You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
just put it out there, and you know, also you look at you know, Andre White is another big one as well. Like, I, you know, I've had several occasions where I was able to examine like his work ethic. His work ethic is uh, I
Insane.
unmatched, unmatched, to be very honest, right? And it's
Yeah.
like when you look at how he's able to do what he does now, he put in that work. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He put in that work. And, you know, just going on to other arrangers in Trinidad, like, you know, Stephon West, OJ, Kurtz, like the whole conglomerate, like who are constantly producing, and they've studied the game. They studied what to
Yeah.
do, and they are actually living examples of how to adapt to suit whatever the times. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
push the needle and try different things. Looked at OJ's performance last year where he's able to. I come out to play, he came out in his drawers. I was like, what? But I mean, that's all part of the excitement of the piece and stuff like that. But you know, he came out to play. He came out and he came out hard and swinging
Yeah.
heavy. You know, you got
Yeah.
to respect these
Um,
things.
yeah. You have to.
Yeah.
And Perfect has a question. Any opinions on the EPAN? Okay, cool. Enough
Yes.
said. Enough said.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll, I would say this. I would say this. Right.
Okay.
Two things. Number one, I think it could be a great tool and a resource for certain things. Right. It can
Mm-hmm.
be very helpful for scoring,
Yes.
inputting, and use as a MIDI controller, right? For those who are, you know, solely pan oriented. I do think it's good for certain types of performances, because it does add that enhancement to have the different the tones available to you,
Mm-hmm.
while still being able to play that one instrument. Same way a keyboard can switch to different tones.
Yeah.
It's great. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing I would say is I think that something could be done to make it more affordable,
Okay.
right? So, for
I haven't even
example,
looked at the price of it, to be honest. But
the price of an EPAN could be upwards of about $4,000. Well, that's 4,000 US,
got
right?
you.
So
Okay.
now let's look at the translatability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to have more success, let's look at first, where do we consider to be the Mecca of Pan? That's Trinidad, am I
Yeah.
correct? So
Yeah, you're
now,
correct.
if you take 4,000 US, translate that now
The
to whatever
TT.
it's a
Yeah.
TT.
Yeah.
That that, that is, people are buying cars, and you know,
For that
definitely
price.
buying, you
Yeah.
know, putting the sizable down payments on very nice
Yeah.
houses for that amount of money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that is a lot for the average person to be able to afford. And so if you're seeking more support, I think something has to be done to make it more affordable for the general public.
Mm.
And that's, I will say, just that alone.
That's it.
That's it for
Okay.
that.
That's fair. That's fair. I get it. I was gonna say something else, but I'll leave it there.
Nah, it's I feel like, you know, we're
Mm.
sharing here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Impact said, but imagine having a pan slash app that can
Mhm.
record every section's part and then send it to them.
Hmm.
I feel like that happened. We have that already. No?
The EPAN app, I mean, that affords you the opportunity to be able to do the same thing, right? To an
Yeah.
extent. Only thing is, obviously you have to do it with your fingertips or whatever, but at your
Yeah.
phone or your iPad or whatever. But I
Yeah.
think it does allow you the opportunity to record or whatever, or even now with the iPhones or I'm an iPhone user, sorry
Mhm.
for any Androids out there or whatever, but yeah,
I won't say anything, but yeah. Hmm.
we can screen record, right, and send it over. I've learned songs to that, right? People have
Right.
screen recorded the songs and send it to me, and then by the time I come to rehearsal, I'm like, all right, I got it, cool.
Right.
That can work too.
Hmm.
In regards to to sending parts, but really and truly, I think uh, the idea, I said the idea in pad, right, is to get people literate in terms of verse and reading music, right? Of course, you can set a score, you can set a MIDI file, and then it makes life easier, right? But in the
Yeah.
event that they can't do that, then you can screen record what you're playing, let them mimic it, and then when you get to rehearsal, they're more understanding of what's going on. So I feel like that can exist. If there's a specific app to do that, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I feel like that already exists.
Yeah. I think I think there is already.
Hmm.
Um, I had a question about, are you willing to come to Canada for Panorama and other events?
Most definitely, most
Oh,
definitely.
okay.
Actually, at some point, with the three amigos, we were able to do some work in Brampton,
Okay.
with Brampton Golden Harp Center and Panorama, in Toronto, and we actually, to be honest, this past summer, we're like, yo, I wonder what's going on in Toronto over there. We kind of miss it over there. We used to
Hmm.
like the vibe going over there, and it was just so cool and chill,
Yeah.
and it's a good atmosphere overall. So we loved it. So yeah,
Okay.
definitely be open to it.
Okay. Do you want to come further west to Canada?
I've never been. That seems
Okay.
exciting to go to because
Okay.
I've never been. I like to explore. So
Okay.
I'm
Well,
down for the cause.
I will send this invitation out to you and everyone else that's watching. Last year, my band hosted a steel band showcase. So
Mm,
we don't have enough bands to do like a panorama,
right.
but we had a showcase where we highlighted my band, two bands, well, a band from Calgary, another band from Edmonton, and a band from Lethbridge, all in Alberta. So next year we're planning on doing the same thing again, but also include a band from Saskatchewan and a band from Vancouver. It
Mm,
was a vibe.
mm,
We had fun. We did a like a open discussion panel on the Friday night where all the pan players came around and we just discussed. It was just pan for 2 hours. And
it's
then
my
on
kind
the
of thing.
Saturday,
Yeah.
yeah, and then on the Saturday we just had performances and it was a vibe. So if it's something different that you guys want to come check out, I suggest you come check it out. It will be like July, I think 11th and 12th.
Yeah. If you could send information, that'd be great.
I will. Yeah,
Make some
once I
adequate
get that
preparations.
solidified, I will definitely post it on this page and on my personal page so you guys can come check it out.
Dope. Okay.
Yeah. Just want to put that out there. We're
All
trying to
right.
get we're trying to get Pan because right now when people hear Pan they just think of Toronto. We're just
Mm-hmm.
like, we're over here too. Hi. Pay attention to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm just trying to get the eyes to Western Canada now.
But I think in one of your previous lives, you mentioned that was like your first annual or something like that
Mhm.
last year, right?
Yeah. Well, it's this year,
Right.
earlier this year. Yeah.
Earlier this year.
Yeah.
Well, right. So now why do people associate it with Toronto? Because they've been doing it for years, but that's like a panorama kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So now you have a first annual. Now spotlights can definitely be
Hmm.
done on that side too. So
Yeah.
it's it's gonna snowball. Don't worry. Don't worry.
We, we we exist over here too. Canada's not just Toronto. So
Got it.
yeah. Yeah.
Got
Just
it.
just just letting you guys know. we we exist. But I love it was amazing having you. We loved having you here. It was a great conversation. We lasted 2 hours.
Sheesh. Wow.
Uh,
I didn't think that would happen.
it usually
Hopefully,
does.
hopefully, you didn't feel like a waste of time.
No,
Okay.
it was a great conversation.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure if we have another open discussion, just hop on. Just hop on.
Okay, we'll do.
Talk about anything.
We'll do.
You need an ambassador, Chris? Like,
Who needs an ambassador?
that's what I'm trying to figure. Like, for Western Canada, that would be me. I am the official ambassador for Western Canada. I am literally pushing Tan over here. I'm trying. I don't think I'm doing a good job because it's not out there, but now I'm doing it. So I don't know. I'm trying. So I'll just give you guys a little I don't, like peek. We have Andre White coming back, and we have Jimmy Lapierre coming back. So they
Nice.
were our panel. They also played a few songs during the Saturday. It was fun. We had fun. Did not sleep. Did not sleep.
Oh man, what time is it over there?
It is now 8:06.
Really?
It's like 10 for you, right?
10:06. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Don't worry. Next week we'll be on the same. Well, just an hour away. It's fine.
Right. No, you guys will still be 2 hours ahead of me.
You guys have daylight saving time as well?
We do.
Oh, wow. I don't think anybody else did that. Okay.
We do. I think
Got
the
it.
only province that doesn't do it, I think, is Saskatchewan. That we have daylight savings over here. It, it it gets dark at like 5 p.m. over here.
Yeah, that's going to be the case with us as
Yeah.
well. By 5, pitch black. That's it.
Yeah. You go to work dark, you come home dark.
Correct.
Yeah. Other
That's going to suck
countries
too.
don't understand that, but that's okay.
You wake up at 7, it's still dark
It's
outside.
still
It's
dark
not very
outside.
motivating to go to work.
Nope. But in the summertime, the thing that people don't realize here in Alberta, it doesn't get dark until like midnight in the summer.
Till midnight. That's
hmm
intriguing.
Yeah.
I thought it was bad for us because, like, by 9 o'clock is when it's like now it gets dark, right? And everybody's like,
hmm
well, like I've been on FaceTime calls with people in Trinidad, and they're like, well, it's 8 o'clock. It's like, why is it still bright outside? It's like, well, yeah, summertime, so
hmm
yeah, not till about 9 o'clock or so, but midnight is crazy.
Midnight, yeah. Is when it gets, well, it depends. I think like in August, I would probably say like 1 o'clock it gets pitch black. But yeah, that's a
That's something
thing.
to experience. That's actually kind of cool.
That's why you guys need to come check us out. That's what I'm saying. But
Got it.
yeah, I will give you guys the info when I finally get everything done. It's a lot of work. But until then, Mark, thank you for coming on. It was a
Well, thank you for
great
having me.
conversation. Anything you have coming
Having me.
up, just send it my way and I will post it for you.
Okay, we'll do. I got you.
Okay. Listeners, viewers, thank you for joining us. We appreciate for Western Canada. That's what Chris just said. I'm trying, Chris. I'm trying. Thank you for joining us. I will be off next week, but I'll be on the following week as another open discussion. So if there's anything else that you guys want to discuss, let me know because we will discuss it. That's what this platform is here for. We need to get the pan community together. So,
Agreed.
right? So if there's anything you want to
Definitely.
discuss, this is the platform to do it. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week, enjoy the rest of your Monday, and I will see you in about 2 weeks. Have a good night, guys. Have a good night, Mark.
All right. Good night. Thank you again.
Yeah, of course, anytime. We'll talk.
All right.
Okay. Bye, everyone.